So, a few years ago, I did something that had my Latina mom panicking and insisting that I see a therapist. This certain something that I did was inspired by the delusional idea that I wanted to start living the story that I would one day like to read in a book. I was also in search of learning something that I felt I couldn't learn by living the typical and ordinary life that I was. And yes, of course, as you might expect of someone who goes off and does what I am about to share, I too was looking to escape, specifically from a severely depressing and nagging quarter life crisis. But it was in this crisis that I found the courage to do something I had been contemplating for 3 years. So what was it that I did that had my mom going all crazy? Well, I got rid of all my possessions, money, got rid of my life in Los Angeles, where I had been a real estate agent for the past 6 years. I took a one-way flight to Mexico City, where I landed alone and didn't know anyone, with $300, this backpack, a journal, and no plan other than the idea that I had to be creative to survive and, well, kind of just write whatever happened. And it wasn't long into my arrival that my delusional life decision came crashing on me. I tried to find an escape from my escape. I tried to get a job. Fortunately, no one wanted to hire me. I quickly found myself on my last dollars and on the verge of sleeping on the street. Finally, in a desperate act of survival, I went to downtown Mexico City. I made a grand investment of $2. I bought several things: strings, buttons, screws, pins. I got back to my hostel. I emptied my pockets on the floor of my 10-bed dorm room. And I said, okay, Daniel, out of this, something has to be created. The result were these weird-looking things, just a long string with its ends connected by a button. Not really knowing what these things were, I decided that they had no specific use other than the creative use each person wanted to give them. I showed it to some friends I had made at the hostel, and well, naturally, they started laughing. They're like, what the heck you gonna do with that? Sell them? To whom? To people? What people? I don't know, people on the street? Dude, maybe you should get a real job. Nonetheless, I went out. After all, I really didn't have another option. There was no plan B. And my friends were right, at least to the extent that this was not an easy gig. My first day was a tragic, total, and pathetic failure. Not one person bought into my idea. But I kept going out, trying different things, and taking notes, not so much out of academic reasons, but more out of, well, survival reasons. And then the most amazing thing happened. People started supporting me. So much so, actually, that I ended up traveling all of Latin America, from Mexico to Argentina, taking pictures of everyone who supported and financed my travels and my project in exchange for a simple string and a button. I then went on to do the same across the United States of America, this time with literally just one button and one string, which I kept. There are now close to 10,000 people on my photos on Facebook. This thing turned into a socially conscious business with the cause of helping people in need through the sale of its products. For example, that simple string and button has evolved, and 100% of the profits are invested in people in need in the form of microfinancing. But that leaves the question, well, how? How did I manage to convince close to 10,000 people from over a dozen countries to support me? Or better yet, for those in the sales industry, how did I manage to do so while achieving what you guys would call an 85% closing ratio? Or in the case of the United States of America, how did I manage to not only convince people to allow me to take a picture of them, but to do so while holding my button? If that weren't inconvenient enough to have them sign a contract or a photography release form, which gave me the rights to that photo, have them hand me back my button, and then on top of that, have them give me money. How? There were several things at play, but I give the highest credit to 4 things. Without these 4 things, none of this would have been possible. The first one, humility. There was something I was able to say when I landed in Mexico City that I would have never dared to say, no matter how true it might have been, back in Los Angeles being the person that I used to be. And that was, I have no money, I am broke. Oh, it felt great. But the power and the good feeling was not so much in the phrase itself or the fact that it expressed, but rather in the person I had become as a result of being able to say such a thing. In the process of surviving in Mexico City, in the fight, in the struggle, I had been forced to recognize that I was no better than anyone else. I had been forced to accept myself for who I was and how I was, with all my problems and all my insecurities. I had found, or was forced to find, humility at a level I had never experienced before. And it felt fantastic. It was like being able to get in front of the world, naked, and say, this is me, and what? There was nothing to hide, nothing to pretend, no image to uphold. It was liberating. It was freedom. It was the platform upon which I was able to connect with other people. See, when it came to approaching people on the street, the freedom that I found in humility allowed me to escape myself and enter the world of the other person. It allowed me to have presence. That pure and unadulterated state in which we are in tune with our environment and the person in front of us in such a way that we're able to communicate in the most effective manner possible, emotionally. See, when I approached people or when I connected with people, I realized that it wasn't so much what they heard coming out of my mouth, but rather what they felt. Could they feel another human being, another person just like them? Or was it just some random guy caught up in his own head, spitting out words and making noise? But most importantly, at least for me, the freedom that I found in humility allowed me to not only be comfortable being a street peddler, but to also enjoy the heck out of it, despite what my friends and family might have thought of the fact that I was pursuing a life path that was really not that much different from a little kid selling chiclets in the streets of Mexico. And finally, it was from this place of humility that I found myself in the best position to offer respect, which is ingredient number 2. In his book, David and Goliath, Malcolm Gladwell tells the story of a drug addict who went off to steal some girl's purse, an 18-year-old girl, a college student. Why? Well, so he could buy more drugs. He approached her, put a gun to her head, a .357 Magnum to be exact. He demanded the purse, she gave him the purse, he got the purse, he shot her. Later, they asked him, well, why the heck, if you got what you wanted, if you got the purse, why'd you still go off and shoot the girl? His response, I didn't like the way she looked at me. she didn't show any respect. It seems like a stupid reason to go off and kill someone. Except that it's kind of not. That's just the power of respect. It's something so simple, yet so powerful. You want to test it? Go off to some random guy on the street, preferably one with a low stock of respect in his life, a high amount of pride. Take that 50-cent pencil out of his hand, break it, throw it on the floor, and try walking away. If he beats you, trust me, it had nothing to do with the pencil. In my case, I was able to use respect to get one of the most important things I could ever ask of a complete stranger on the street, and it wasn't their money. It was their time and attention. When I respected people, they reciprocated. They respected me back. And with that came their time and attention, which in turn brought their support or a sale. But it all started with this little thing called respect. And the coolest thing about this thing is that it's universally valued. It can determine whether someone pays attention to you or not. It can determine whether someone shoots you or not. Yet, it doesn't cost a thing to produce. So now you might be asking, okay, Daniel, we get it. Respect, universally valued, cool. But tell me the most important thing, Daniel. What words can I use to make people believe that I respect them? Well, for starters, communicating respect goes beyond words. It's in the way you look at someone. It's in your body posture. It's in the tone that you use. And second of all, you don't make people believe that you respect them. You genuinely respect them. There's no need to learn NLP or these mimicking tricks. The body posture, the tone, the words that communicate respect, they come naturally when we're genuine, when we open up, when we're humble, when we're honest. Honesty. Ingredient number 3. In the end, this whole thing can really just be summed up as me hitting the streets, approaching strangers, and sharing my dream with them. I just simply told them who I was, and where I wanted to be. I told them how I wanted to travel the world and start something. I told them how I wanted to take pictures of everyone who supported me, and that if I made it, I wanted to live the idea that despite having little, if we're creative, we can go far with something as simple as a string and a button. Then I just simply asked them if they wanted to support me. I never told them this was a big thing. In fact, they seemed to take a liking to the fact that it was a small thing, that it was just me and my delusional idea, and in them supporting me, it was them too. When it came to opening them up, I was honest in the sense that I was straight up with them about my purpose. I didn't start by asking them how their day was or how their family was. I didn't pretend to be their best friend. The niceties came later. I got straight to the point. Interestingly, I found that people respected that. When it came to signing the photography release form or the contract, I just simply told them I didn't want to get sued for publishing their picture. Not one person refused to sign. So that's honesty. The next and final ingredient, curiosity. For this, let me start by beating and bashing on something that has become the trend and the fashion of recent years, the thing most commonly said by people who don't know what to say in a given situation. Think positive. Your girlfriend leaves you, you want her to come back? Don't worry, think positive. Your hand falls off, you want to grow a new one. Don't worry, think positive. All right, I get it. I admit there's some benefits to thinking positive, but it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. When it came to approaching people on the streets, I found it to be more of an issue than a solution. When I approached people with this idea that said, I am positive that you're going to support me, I am positive that you're going to act on my expectations, I came off as selfish, cocky, pretentious. The encounter almost turned into a bet where I was saying, I bet I can sell you. Naturally, they responded with, I bet you can't. Now, I'm not a gambling man, but in this case, I would definitely put my money on the other person in deciding whether that thing was going to get done or not. So at this point, you might be asking, okay, Daniel, well, so if it's not about being positive, is it about being negative? No. I propose a new solution to this old and overused idea that positivity works best. I propose curiosity. In his book, To Sell is Human, Daniel Pink references a study in which two groups of people were put to do anagrams, or come up with as many words as possible using a specific set of letters. The first group, before they started, they were engraved with the idea of positivity. I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. The second group were engraved with the idea of curiosity, or asking the question, can I do it? Can I do it? The results were astonishing. The group that went into it with curiosity, asking a question, performed 50% better than the group that went into it with a blind, positive mind state. See, the thing about curiosity is that it asks questions, it seeks answers, it begs for understanding, and it doesn't assume. This is incredibly powerful when it comes to connecting with people, specifically with strangers, in an environment where stereotypes tend to flourish. Instead of approaching people with this idea that says, I know who she is, we should be going into it asking the question, who is she? So, to wrap up here, in the end, I traveled the world, from the Great Plains of the United States to the depths of the Amazon River to the peaks of the Andes Mountains. By far, the best experience of my life. Yet, I couldn't help but to feel slightly disappointed when I came back to Mom. The lessons in communication I had traveled so far to learn were in the end not that much different from everything my mom had been trying to teach me my whole life. Daniel, she said, accept yourself, be humble. Daniel, stop hitting your brother, be respectful. Daniel, don't lie to me, be honest. And Daniel, don't assume, ask questions, be curious. Thank you.